to take the snap. And
he runs it.
No, he runs it. And he ties for the end zone. Does he get it in? Touchdown! Fernando Mendoza! Fernando looks. Going to throw it down the field for Charlie Becker. And does he make the catch? He made the catch! Charlie Becker again. This guy is phenomenal. Beck looks, throws it down the field, and it is intercepted by Indiana. Wow, what a play! And it is Jamari Sharp who comes up with a pick. And the rags to riches story for Indiana football comes to conclusion, and they are the national champions of 2026. What a football team!
Did I ever think something like this was possible? Probably not. But if you keep your nose down in life and keep working, anything is possible.
It's the most special part of my life. It's such a great group of guys. I love you guys. Great job. Let's go!
On three. 1, 2, 3. Who got it?
The Indiana Hoosiers are the 2025 season and January of 2026 national champions in college football. The Indiana Hoosiers are the national champions in college football. And I will admit, I grew up the biggest Indiana sports fan on the planet. I grew up an obnoxious Indiana fan. I grew up having people probably that got tired of hearing about Indiana because of my vociferous and ubiquitous brag of Indiana athletics. And last night, as I watched that game, it wasn't even that I was emotional about it because of the fact that it's impossible to state what it's like to see the impossible happen that you never even thought about because that possibility was never even on your conscience. And yes, you know, I became a Clemson football fan over the last 25 years, largely just because I assumed I needed to find somewhere if I was going to be a college football fan that was going to be able to give me a team that allowed me to see them win big games. And I got to thinking about all of it last night, and I'll start simply by saying this. For years, when it comes to Indiana football, I thought everything was impossible. When it came to Indiana football, I thought it was impossible that they could win marquee games. I thought it was impossible that they could regularly be a bowl participant. And I thought it was impossible that Indiana would someday become the talk of the college football world. And what I didn't consider was that there was a coach and there were a group of players that realized something that finally became an epiphany for me last night. And that is that impossible is simply an apostrophe away from saying, I'm possible. And Indiana football found a coach in Curt Cignetti, an athletic director in Scott Dolson that found him, a president in Pam Whitten that facilitated for both, that simply realized that Indiana was just an apostrophe away from greatness. And that apostrophe simply needed to be placed in a spot within the word to say, I'm possible. Anything that I believe I can make happen. And that's what they did last night. And as the game ended and the confetti was falling and the celebration was on, and I'm watching friends of mine that I grew up with that are sending videos and are in Miami, and I'm watching the local news of this joy and exultation and this incredible, I wouldn't even say weight off the shoulders of people, because for there to be weight on the shoulders, there has to be the pressure of an original belief. And still this incredulous nature of all of it. This incredulous disbelief for everybody goes away and evaporates into thin air, and that's when I was trying to think about what it was. I was trying to put into words what it was that I was seeing. I was trying to summarize and wordsmith what it meant for a program that had been so stuck in the doldrums and the basement of college football, the laughingstock, everyone's homecoming game. The only time that they could get an aerial shot of Memorial Stadium was when Ohio State came to town, because then you got at least 30,000 people wearing red. That's what it was like for so long. And I thought about how when you would go to Indiana football games, as I did as a kid, and aside from rolling down the hill on the north end of Memorial Stadium, and aside from the possibility of getting the plastic cups that had the Indiana different per year athletic markings on it, for all of those things, the only real highlight of going to games was, at least when I was a kid, I got to sing along with the fight song. And I loved the fight song. And in that fight song, one of the first things that said, Indiana, oh, Indiana, Indiana, we're all for you. And there was a part of me going into the game last night that had this little bit of cynicism, this little bit of almost a jealousy perhaps, but like holding off a resentment over the fact that I looked at it and I thought, you know, I grew up wanting so badly as a kid to go to Indiana and to represent Indiana and to be able to have a job someday where I could talk about and celebrate Indiana. And I don't just mean Indiana University. I mean the state that I love. I mean, I bleed the torch. I've grown to the point where I love and I appreciate what Purdue basketball does for people and what it means and the way that they do things the right way. And I understand and appreciate now that Notre Dame, one of the great universities, one of the great sports programs for football, is here within the boundaries of our state. And I love that Larry Bird is from Indiana and Oscar Robertson went to high school in Indiana. And I love all of those things. But I loved the university because I loved that it was Indiana, and I loved that they sang about Indiana, Indiana, we're all for you. But I had this little resentment because I'm looking at Fernando Mendoza, and I'm looking at D'Angelo Pons, and I'm looking at Charlie Becker, and all of these guys, and I'm saying, man, they're living out the childhood dream I had of being able to represent Indiana. But I wonder if they truly know what it means to be from Indiana. I wonder if they truly grasp what it means to be a Hoosier. And last night it dawned on me that the joke the whole time was on me. The error the entire time was on me. Because what I realized was in that fight song when they say, Indiana, we're all for you, what that truly means is it doesn't matter where you're born. It doesn't matter where you're raised. It matters that you carry with you the culture of Indiana. And that group last night showed the culture of Indiana, that was a group of players saying it's not about individually what we are. It's about the fact that Indiana, oh, Indiana, we're all for us. We are all for us. That entire team looked out for each other. That entire team had each other's back. That entire team had a vision, had a goal, had a mindset, had a mentality where they overcame adversity when it was thrown their way, where they found a way and they dug deep, where they represented themselves and their brothers and their teammates and their common goal, and they hugged with one another at their final practice and bemoaned the fact that they could never again, as a group in its entirety, be able to practice together to chase the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal happened. And Indiana, oh, Indiana, we're all for us, for all of us. And that group last night, like Don Fisher said, what a football team. What a football team. To display to the rest of the country what we've known all along. We are Indiana. And whether you are a fan of any other school in this state, what happened last night at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami was a program that has been nothing but hard knock forever. And yet, what do we love about being Hoosiers? What do we love about being from Indiana? What we love about being from Indiana is the fact that we collectively know that we're pretty cool. We collectively know that the joke's kind of on everybody else because we're a pretty good place to live. And yes, we don't have the oceans. We don't have the mountains. We don't have the skyscrapers and the cool neighborhoods of New York City. We don't have historic baseball stadiums in Major League Baseball and some of the things, all of the bells and whistles and the luxuries that other places in this country have. But what we have is the fact that we live in the heartland of this country. And what does the heartland mean? It means that we are the part of this country that actually is the heartbeat of it. We manufacture things, we grow food for people, and we take care of each other, and we look after each other. And so we have had ingrained in all of us, when you grow up in this state, the mentality, the understanding, the appreciation that we know we're pretty good people. And we feel a camaraderie with the others that live here because they feel that same understanding. And last night, that football team did exactly that. They represented Indiana, not just the university, but the culture of who we are as a people. And they did it by realizing that they didn't have to pay attention to what Paul Feinbaum was saying and what three-quarters of the panelists on game day were saying, and all four of them were saying in the pregame show. 7 of the 8 last night on the network that was airing the game picked the Miami Hurricanes. And the one that didn't is the guy that lives here. And yet, none of that mattered. Because Indiana football that turned Hard Rock Stadium into Heps Rock Stadium, that brought 65% of the crowd and had it so loud that Carson Beck couldn't hear his own snap count when Miami had a chance to win that game. And you knew, I knew, Nathaniel knew, Eddie knew, every single person watching that game knew the same damn thing. There was zero chance Miami was going down and scoring on that drive. None. Because Indiana believed in themselves, and they've done it all year where they've dug down deep and they have come up and found a way to win. And that's exactly what they did. And you knew it was going to happen. No disrespect to Miami. No disrespect to Carson Beck, who played a great game, and their players in space and their defensive tenacity, all of which we knew were going to be legitimate foes for Indiana. But what you saw last night was not just a team that went 16-0, not just a team that didn't lose a fumble in its final 15 games of the season, not just a team that continued to not make mistakes and wait until finally you made yours, which is exactly what we said was going to happen. It was going to come down to somebody was going to make a mistake, and Indiana waited until Miami made theirs, and they took advantage of it, and that's what lifted them to the win. But this is not a fluke story. This is not a Cinderella out of nowhere. This is a team that eviscerated everyone in their path. This was not North Carolina State in 1983 catching lightning in a bottle. This was not some team that gets red hot in the NFL playoffs and ekes their way in, and then every ball bounces their way. In college basketball, you have teams that can make a run because things fell their way. Indiana in 2002 went to the national championship game in college basketball. You know what we forget? What we forget is that USC, who was a top 4 seed, I think, got knocked out in the first round by UNC Wilmington, and Indiana caught themselves a break to get into the Sweet 16 and then upset Duke. Indiana won the national championship in resounding fashion in 1981, the largest point-per-game average margin of victory until UNLV broke it in 1990 in NCAA tournament history. They steamrolled the path. What we forget, that 1981 tournament, DePaul was the number 1 seed and the number 1 team in the country, and they got upset by St. Joseph's, which cleared the path for Indiana, who got to play those opening games in Assembly Hall. But this was not that. This was a team that beat Oregon soundly in Oregon. And by soundly, I mean by Oregon standards, who's only lost like 7 games in 3 years or whatever it is, to control a game where you felt like you made the plays down the stretch and it was never in doubt and it was, the last couple of minutes of the game, you're salting clock away. That's controlling the game. And they did that in Eugene. This was a team that found then itself with its back against the wall against Iowa and came up with that play to Elijah Surratt. This was a team that found itself with the college football world reckoning saying, you know what? Indiana finally is being put in its place by going into Happy Valley and a raucous stadium that has a bunch of guys that lost their coach in the middle of the season, and Indiana still can't pull it out. And Fernando Mendoza in that final drive got smacked in the mouth and knocked to the ground and sacked, and everybody's going crazy, and you're saying to yourself, the rest of the country is saying, see, it's finally midnight on Cinderella. But Indiana did what Indiana does, and they came up with a masterful play with that touchdown from Omar Cooper Jr. of Lawrence North High School in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the back of the end zone. And one of the most remarkable catches you're going to see. And Indiana had to play Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. The mighty Buckeyes. Julian Sayans should be the Heisman Trophy winner. Look what he did against Penn State. Fernando Mendoza struggled against Penn State. This is a no-brainer. And they beat Ohio State. And they did the impossible, there's that word again, by actually getting Ohio State fans to admit, you know, these guys might actually be pretty good. And in the college football playoff, they turn around, they go in, and they eviscerate Alabama. Mighty Alabama. Then they go in and they turn around and they beat Oregon soundly. I mean, soundly. And Miami, you're talking about blue bloods here, right? You notice the theme? Penn State, Ohio State, Miami. Oregon's a more recent blue blood, but a blue blood nonetheless. And yet Indiana walked through all of them. And instead of talking about the Johnny-come-lately aspect of it, now you look at it and say, they didn't just show up at the party, they crashed their way through the door. And they are the national champions. And today, in the course of this show, over the course of the show today, what we're going to do is celebrate Indiana. I mean, yes, I could have sat here last night and lined up for you 10,000 writers and people, and we've got the line out to folks like that. But today, this show should be about you. It should be about Indiana fans, maybe even those of you that weren't Indiana fans, that simply watched the game and realized and had your imagination captured. Because, like I said, impossible is only one apostrophe away from I'm possible. I am possible to do what I thought I could never get done. Because if you would have stopped 1,000 people at the Indianapolis 500 in May of 2 years ago, if you were to stop 500 people at an Indianapolis Indians game at any point, if you were to stop 250 people at a Colts game any time of the last 40 years, or for that matter, if you were to stop anybody at the IHSAA Basketball State Championships anytime between Bobby Milan's shot and now, or Bobby Plump's shot, and now, and the Milan Miracle, and said, what sports team in Indiana do you think is the least likely to ever win a title? Almost everyone would have said Indiana football. You know, my job, JMV's job, Kevin Bowen's job, James Boyd's job, Jeff Rickard's job, our job, all of us, is to try to put into words and illustrate and capture moments. Our job is to discuss and analyze and opine on sports in general. And sometimes things happen where I sit back and I say, what exactly is it that I'm thinking? And then I turn on the television. And I turn on the television and I'm watching the local news, and this is taken off a television set, so it's not the greatest audio known to man, but I'm watching the news and I see Brian Jacobson. Brian Jacobson is a guy that went to North Central High School and IU, grew up on the north side of Indianapolis, like all of us in this town. Just a Hoosier kid. A Hoosier kid married to a Hoosier gal, and they got Hoosier kids. It's like a Mellencamp song. And he's down in Miami, and WTHR is interviewing fans, and they interview Brian Jacobson, and he's holding his flag, and they ask him what this means, and this dude says in like 5 seconds the most perfect synopsis of what exactly it was that unfolded before all of our very eyes last night. I promise you he did.
It's a surreal stunt. It's surreal, but it's real. Yeah.
Okay. It's surreal, but it's real. That should be a t-shirt. Not like, why not Indiana, which is exactly what Reese Davis said when he brought Curt Cignetti up on stage. Why not Indiana? First thing he said, trademarked phrase, by the way, at least for commercial print. But it's surreal, but it's real. It's surreal, but it's real. The Indiana Hoosiers are the top of the mountain in college football. And forever, I don't care what happens from here on out. I don't know that they're going away anytime soon. Alberto Mendoza's in the transfer portal. We can discuss that if you'd like. But forever and a day more, when you discuss the 2025 college football season, yeah, sure. We could talk about how Ohio State was thought to be the best and they had the best receivers in football. Guess what? They ended their year on a 2-game losing streak. That's what I think about Ohio State's year, right? We could talk about Notre Dame and how Notre Dame got snubbed and they should have been in, and it's ridiculous that Marcus Freeman's only chance of being around the college football playoff was being on the pregame show. That's what I think about that, because Notre Dame had their chance, and they played 2 games that went into the college football playoff to begin their year, and they lost both of them. And Indiana forever now, moving forward, we will discuss as the greatest team in college football in 2025 and perhaps one of the greatest of all time. But we're going to celebrate them today by letting you celebrate. Because like I said, the fight song says, Indiana, we're all for you. And that's exactly what this victory means for all of you. You don't have to have gone to Indiana. You don't have to have ever stepped foot in Bloomington. You don't have to even necessarily have lived in Indiana to simply fall in love with the story. But we talked about it yesterday. There are your parents that you think about that weren't here, or maybe that are and were touched by it. There's your uncle that got you to be a fan, the kid next door to you that you loved watching games with. There's somebody that inspired you, that you thought about. Your Bill Benner, your Bob Jenkins, your Turnbuckle Bill, your Garrison Carr, the people that are diehard Indiana fans. And then there are those that simply fell in love with it because it was a group that said it's about us. And that's who we're celebrating today. The telephone number is 239-1070. 317-239-1070. I know you had to have done it. You watched the game. You were fired up. You were excited. You were elated. You haven't slept. You're on your way back. You're driving back, whatever it might be. If you were watching the game last night, if you were excited about it, if you thought to yourself, I've got to get this off my chest. I've got to celebrate. I've got to tip the cap. I got to give a shout out to. I've got to let people know when and where it was that I thought this would never happen, or when or where it was that I thought this was a possibility. For all of it, I want to hear from you. For all of it. Because Indiana, we're all for you. That group last night was for all of us, and so too today is the celebration, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Eddie Garrison put together a montage of some of the plays. We'll play that. We have some of great Don Fisher calls over the course of time. We're going to play that as well. But we're going to celebrate all of you that are celebrating today, and we're going to do it on a Tuesday, Indiana Championship edition of Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
66% of people at the College Football National Championship game requested this song as the sing-along song, which is kind of fitting, I guess, because, in fact, to be an Indiana football fan for so long, I guess, hurt so good, right? It's not always been fun. But patience is a virtue, right? Hey, Jake, how about Party Man Nick? Oh, man. Nick Coleman. Buddy, he is varsity. Anybody who's been a longtime listener of radio shows that I have done knows about Party Man Nick. Boom, baby. Go Horse. Go Beer Spill, and go Hoosiers. All right, 239-1070 is the telephone number. Would love to hear from you folks about what it meant, what your thoughts were, who you were thinking about. We will begin with Aaron, who joins the program. Aaron, what's up?
Jake, oh, what a game. What a celebration. I didn't lose pause on the fact that before the game started, all the color guys, Nick Saban and others, all chose Miami except for Pat McAfee. And I just thought, what sweet reward for us to finally be able to show off all the hard work that's been put in by the team.
I think it just wasn't in vogue to give credit to Indiana. And I understand it, Aaron, to be honest with you. I understand why a true football lifer like a Nick Saban, and there must be something between Nick Saban and Signetti, by the way, but I digress. You know, and Marcus Freeman, I understood Marcus Freeman's rationale. Hey, listen, I can't, I got to play Miami. They're my league. I mean, I can't pick against them. It's chalkboard, bulletin board material, whatever, locker room material. And McAfee lives here, so McAfee gets it. All four, by the way, on the pregame show, if that makes sense, also picked Miami. So 7 of 8 picked Miami. And yes, isn't that fitting? Isn't it fitting? Because when you live in Indiana, you just understand that people are always going to kind of roll their eyes. Keith joins us next at 239-1070. Hi, Keith.
Hey, how you doing, Jake?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm tired, Keith, truthfully.
All,
I'm a little tired. I didn't sleep well last night. How about you?
I went to bed at 12:30, fell asleep. I got back up to watch more of the post game.
Okay.
I went to bed at 2 o'clock, and I got up at 6. Anyway, first off, that game was for my dad, 2009. He passed away. He was a huge IU fan. I actually went to Purdue. I'm a Purdue guy. I was smart enough to get married in college. My wife was older, moved down to Indianapolis, got an IU degree, which has been a fantastic degree. But I am a Purdue guy. But I've always said Hoosier by birth, Boilermaker by the grace of God. And last night I even texted, I'm changing that, Hoosier by birth, Hoosier by the grace of God. I was so excited. And this is for the state of Indiana. To me, it's not just about IU, which obviously they deserve everything. This is Indiana. And I just was sitting there. I've been so used to watching Colts game. That last drive, I thought Miami was going to score because I'm so used to watching the stupid Colts blow it every single fourth quarter.
Right.
And I was nervous as hell. I'm like, wait, this isn't the Colts are red. But I am a proud Hoosier, and again, I am always a Purdue guy. But I tell you what, I am so damn proud to be a Hoosier today.
Keith, what is your dad's name?
My dad is Ed.
Last name? You don't have to give it if you don't want.
Ed Terrell.
I'm sorry, with a C or T?
T as in Tom. Ed Terrell. He died December 7th, 2009.
Ed Terrell. And you said he was an IU football fan?
Oh, especially Bobby Knight. I mean, Bobby Knight was his man, but IU through and through.
All right, so Ed Terrell. Ed Terrell, we're all for you, baby. That's what we're doing today. We're dedicating it to everybody. Ed Terrell's one of them. Jake is up next. 239-1070. Jake, what's going on?
Hey, Jake. Hey, as a man of great analogies, as such as you are, I have one for you.
Okay.
So the pinnacle last night was reached. It was the moon landing. We discovered flight 60 years later. We went to the moon. We went from play 13 in 2007 to landing on the national championship, the moon surface. That, to me, is talk about the greatest turnaround in sports. You're looking at something that is so unprecedented. And from me talking to my then girlfriend and wife, beating, top 10 ranked Iowa in 2006, saying this is the biggest win they've ever had. This is amazing. Just hoping to be on the field, to literally watching a national title last night and just the surreal that's real. That whoever said that man that said that earlier, wow. And
yeah, listen,
validation.
I mean, Jake, here's the thing. Brian Jacobson is the guy's name, so I guess he's also got a Jake in his name, so that makes him cool with you and I, right? So Brian Jacobson's the one that said it. It's, to me, that is the perfect encapsulation. It's surreal, and then he paused and said, but it's real. It's like it hit him right then, right? It hit him in that moment right there, as it did for all of us, right?
Yeah.
As it did for all of us. Like you said, Jake, and I love it. I mean, yeah, there was a time where beating a top 10 team was the pinnacle. And they absolutely worked their way through all of it. Jim.
Lee Corso. I'm dedicating it to Lee Corso.
I like it.
I grew up watching him and his show on the old Channel 4, and he was a lot of fun. And you could tell that he actually believed his own, I guess you could call it a shtick. I don't know. But I thought he was a good coach. It was just sad to see him go into Ohio State and Michigan, but this is different, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Lee Corso, Jim, who, by the way, was fired while speaking to the IU alumni group in Fort Wayne and was in the middle of up there speaking, and they came up there like, by the way, coach. And he basically had to say to the alumni group right there, like, oh, okay, well, it appears as though I'm fired. And Lee Corso, yes, brought color and personality to Indiana football at a time when it desperately needed both. Mike, on the air. What's up, Mike? Mike,
Hello.
You there?
It's actually Macho Mike.
YMCA, Macho Mike, buddy. Were you thinking about Teresa last night watching that game?
Yeah, and Angel. Say hi to Angel. Say hi, Angel.
So, Mike, listen.
You wiggled her left ear.
You are
right
Hoosier through and through, Mike. Could you believe what you were witnessing last night?
No, that was really something. Really happy about it and everything.
Mike, when I think, you know what, Macho Mike? This is Macho Mike Sullivan, by the way, the pride of the Indianapolis Indians and the YMCA Macho Mike. And when I think about, and I mean this sincerely, Mike, I've said this before. What I love about Macho Mike is this. When I was a kid at North Central, Adam Alexander and I did basketball together, and Mac Engel and I did football together. But Adam and I did basketball at Hinkle Fieldhouse for the North Central radio broadcast on WJEL. And all I wanted was to be someday a radio, broadcaster. Same with Adam. And we would go to those games at Hinkle and call the games on the high school station, and we stuck around to call the regionals and the semi-state and all the way through. And Macho Mike and his wife Teresa they ran the box scores along to the press, the media that was there. And Adam and I would sit there, and when they would hand out the stats and the box scores, and Mike, I hope you're still listening here, they would hand them to all the newspaper and television people that were there. And they always came down and made it a point to also hand the box scores to Adam and I. And they never once mentioned that they were doing it probably just because they wanted to help out the young high school kids. They did it in such a way that made me feel like I belonged. They made Adam and I both commented on it. We felt like we belonged. We felt like broadcasters. We were student broadcasters, but we felt official. And that's what I mean. And I've always appreciated that, and I've never forgotten it, that Macho Mike was one of those when I was a young buck that needed it, that was in my corner to make me feel official. And that's what I mean when I say that's how Indiana people are. That's what it is to be a Hoosier. And I don't mean a Hoosier in the sense of attached to Indiana University. I mean a Hoosier meaning native to Indiana or part of the culture here. And that's why last night, when they won it, I thought this is for all of the state of Indiana, because that win was about teamwork. And that win was about togetherness, and that's what Indiana is. We'll continue to celebrate it. 239-1070, including the text number as well. You can also text me at 317-523-9288. 317-523-9288. What this means for Indiana moving forward as well. We'll get into that next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Nathaniel laughs when he hears this song, which I understand because it's incredibly cheesy and it sounds very dated. But this was kind of the theme song of the Indiana 1987 national championship run in basketball. And the reason I played it is because, and Keith Smart sent a post showing his ring, and he basically said, like, it feels great to be a champion. And that's a reminder of how long it's been. It is surreal to me to think that in 47 years, Indiana won 5 national championships in college basketball. And we've been waiting. In this year, 39 since the last one. It's been that long. And no one thought that the next one was going to be courtesy of the football program. And I know soccer's won it. There have been other teams. I don't even know if I can. This is probably like against some sort of rule. I'm not getting anything free out of it, so it's not a payola plugola. But I did notice that I happen to have, and I'm not even sure where I got it in the stacks, but I've got a Hoosier Game Day Lager hat, and I noticed that Curt Cignetti had said that he was going to have not one but two Hoosier lagers. He said Hoosier beer, I think he referenced it. And I thought, well, look, I'm as stylish as Curt Cignetti. Little Hoosier Game Day Lager, baby. The celebration's on, and you have no idea what it meant to me to have all of you out there message me, tweet me. My phone blew up when Reese Davis said it. I don't think we have that audio yet, do we, Nathaniel?
Not yet.
When Reese Davis brought Curt Cignetti up on the stage and said, why not Indiana? Why not Indiana? Don't buy that merchandise from imposters. There is trademark legality involved. Sam joins us. Sam, what's up?
Hey, Jake. Hey, what's going on? Sam Rogan in Greenwood. How you been?
Sam, I'm well, man. Yourself?
I'm great. Hey, I just want to dedicate this one to Terry Hutchins. You know, I got my master's in sports journalism at IU. He was a professor in sports writing for me and a mentor. And I remember in his class, he got the whole class credentialed to cover an IU game back in, I want to say 2010. And it was, you know, not very many people there, not very exciting. But Jake, you know, Terry covered the Hoosiers for Indy Star for years. He also did statistics for, you know, Don Fisher in the booth. Watched years and years of just horrible IU football and had to cover that. And he passed away probably 5 years ago. But I love the man dearly, and I know that, yeah, he's looking down from heaven just beside himself with these Hoosiers. But
now,
just
Sam,
wanted to dedicate it to him.
Let me ask you real quick, Sam, because I apologize for asking this. I'm embarrassed to ask this because you went back to school recently, correct?
Yeah, well, I've got a crazy – yeah, I got that, and then I got my MBA at Butler. I guess I wasn't much of a sports writer because now I own a heating and cooling company.
Well,
I learned a lot of lessons there.
But here's my point. And you correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't want to get, you know, but, you know, you had to reinvent yourself a little bit and kind of pick the pieces up after, you know, a couple of periods where life wasn't going the way you wanted. Is that correct?
For sure. Yeah, I made a lot of bad decisions in life, and I recovered from them.
Well, and here's the thing, Sam, and I didn't mean that to bring that up, right, except for this. Like so many people that listen to this station that I've gotten the pleasure to know in my journeys in doing this, and Sam, you're one of them. You know, we actually crossed paths originally because I was a jackass to you, and then we became buddies. But I think that the reason why last night was so special is because Sam's story is one that, just like he said, made some bad decisions, life wasn't going the right way, and just woke up one day and said, I got to turn this thing around. And now is, you know, on the straight and narrow, killing it, you know, making the most out of life and happy as can be and riding his bike and the whole deal, right? And that's what last night was about. It was about seeing the fact that, like Curt Cignetti said, if you believe, it can happen. And like I said, impossible is an apostrophe away from I'm possible. And it's possible to turn it around. And it's possible to become a champion. And it's possible to win. And Sam, you probably had that within you from the get-go. But my point being, for each and every one of us, there are ways that win last night represented our own personal journey. And Sam, I think you absolutely typify what exactly that was, of turning around now at the top of the mountain at a point where maybe you didn't think that was possible. So I hope you enjoyed it last night.
Appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Sam on the program at 239-1070. Casey is up next. Casey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Casey, it's your turn at the bat.
You know what? I like it.
I bet nobody's ever said that to you before, have they?
It's unpopular first time. It's probably an unpopular view to understand the 7 out of 8 so-called experts that are picking against Indiana. But as a fan my whole life, 2 degrees from IU, great buddies, great friends and family, all gone there. Been Hoosiers forever. Didn't do we're Notre Dame football fans and IU basketball. We didn't do that. Just straight up IU whole time through. I can understand, you know, even with a century and a half of failure, to still have that disbelief, because I was pretty darn nervous in that game, watching it, doing nothing except sitting on the couch with a dog. We're listening to it, went the Don Fisher route. And right up till that interception, I was nervous as could be right there at the end of the game.
See, I thought, here's the thing, Casey, what's interesting to me. And I did have a little bit of nerve about me, right? And I don't usually get that way with sports. You know, I'm a little antiseptic towards sports. But the one thing that last night, for whatever reason, I just really did not think that Carson Beck and Miami were going to deliver. Because, and no knock on him at all, or Miami. I thought Miami was outstanding. I thought their defensive front four was as nasty as we thought it was going to be. You know, I mean, listen, Two Live Crew, who is the face of Miami to a great extent, their album was called Nasty as We Want to Be. That defense was as nasty as they wanted to be. It was. But Indiana has won all year long because they wait till you make a mistake, and they don't make any of them. They had the block punt. They scored on that. And then in the end, when they needed it, they forced Miami into a mistake. And that's the Indiana recipe. Eric. Hi, Eric. Good afternoon to you.
Hey. I mean, I'm an IUPUI alum, and I know I didn't go to Bloomington, but, you know, waking up today, just being an Indiana alum, just a little bit more pride in you. And, you know, 6 months ago, I thought I was going to wake up and I was going to feel the same, and the Pacers had done it. And I'm just happy that, you know, finally a team from Indiana was able to get over the line, bring a title back here, and, you know, bring some pride back to the state that, you know, we all love sports so much. And I was out in Arizona when Purdue played UConn. I wanted them to win so bad, and they were so close. And Notre Dame last year, so it's a great day to be from Indiana and an Indiana fan, man.
So, Eric, will you be rooting for Purdue when they're in the Final Four here then, safe to say, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I don't like Purdue, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I'm at the point now, like, I want these Indiana teams to do well and, you know, bring pride back to the state.
And let's face it.
Last night was awesome, man.
And Purdue's, you know, three of Purdue's cornerstone players are Indiana guys, right? You know, so, and I'm not saying Indiana football didn't have that, but like I said earlier, you know, I explained that. I mean, there was a small part of me in resentment that was like, man, you know, I wish these guys would have been like homegrown Indiana guys. And then I'm like, come on, man, it's 2025. AJ. What's up?
Jake, thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I got two people that I wish were here. I just wanted to mention real quickly. One is my father moved us to Indiana in 1982, and we became IU fans through and through. And after he retired in his late 70s, he started driving the golf cart at Memorial Stadium, up the ramps, taking people up to their seats, the elderly, etc. Wish he was here. And the other person I wish was here was my best friend's dad, who, without him, the tailgates back in the late 80s when I was at IU wouldn't have been as awesome as they were, with their motorhome and coolers full of beer and big pots of chili. Great memories, and two men who should be here to enjoy this moment.
Their names?
Bob Johnson is my dad, and Earl Metzger is my buddy's dad. Earl Metzger was from Jasper, and my dad was from Beckley, West Virginia.
There we go. All right, so we got Earl Metzger, Bob Johnson. Like I said, Indiana, we're all for you, and we're all for them. We come back, what this means moving forward for Indiana. We'll get into that next. Hey, Jake Quarry, what have we been talking about today when it comes to sports? We're talking about making the impossible the possible, suddenly getting on the path that you want to go on. And you know what? Game Day Men's Health can do exactly that for you. Game Day Men's Health, which now has, by the way, clinics in the Indy metro area, Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood. Game Day Men's Health wants to work with you. And I know, guys, all of you, You're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, I want to get back to that athletic shape. I want to get back to where I have more energy. Maybe you have, you're thinking about ED therapies, whatever it might be. Game day therapy is there for you, and this is what I love about it. Not only do you get a game plan for you, not just some game plan one side. No, a game plan for what you want to do to get healthy, feel better, and get back in the game. But you're also going to be doing that with FDA-approved pharmacies right here in the United States. So that means, of course, you're getting safety, you're getting the highest standards of care, all from Game Day Men's Health. A number of different services that they provide: peptide therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, ED therapy, all of it available at Game Day Men's Health, and with multiple locations right here in Central Indiana. It's never been easier. Find them online and make a consultation appointment at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours. You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We won the national championship at Indiana University. It can be done. I'm so happy for our fans. Words can't describe it.
Fernando's going to hand the ball off. Here's the snap. The handoff goes to Nowakowski. He dives his way to the end zone. Touchdown! Fletcher gets the call, tries to skirt outside, and does. He breaks it. He is down the field. He's going to score. And the punt is on. Oh, it's blocked.
Oh,
Indiana
that's huge.
blocks it. It is picked up. Touchdown, Indiana. Isaiah Jones. And Indiana ready to take the snap. He takes it. He looks. He throws the football. And
he runs it.
No, he runs it. And he ties for the end zone. Does he get it in? Touchdown! Fernando Mendoza! Fletcher to his right. Hits snap. And there is an end-around play. And they've got Tony again running it for the end zone. Touchdown. Here's the snap. Fernando looks. Going to throw it down the field for Charlie Becker. And does he make the catch? He made the catch. Charlie Becker again. This guy is phenomenal. Beck looks, throws it down the field, and it is intercepted by Indiana. Wow, what a play. And it is Jamari Sharp who comes up with a pick. And the rags to riches story for Indiana football comes to conclusion. And they are the national champions of 2026. What a football team.
What's this moment like for me? Back when I was waxing the staff table at IUP, Thanksgiving weekend, and the school was shut down for the playoffs, did I ever think something like this was possible? Probably not. But if you keep your nose down in life and keep working, anything is possible.
First, I want to give all the glory to God. And, I mean, there's no better group of guys I want to do it with. This is the most special moment of my life. It's such a great group of guys. I love you guys. Great job. Let's go!
On three. 1, 2, 3. Who, does?
Eddie Garrison putting it together, reflecting on last night. Indiana, the national champions of college football. And I'm going to repeat what I said off the top of the show. Maybe in a more succinct fashion. And we will bring those of you on as well. But I'm going to be honest. I mentioned earlier, and I've mentioned it many, many times on this program. I grew up a massive Indiana fan. I had an almost unhealthy obsession over being from Indiana. I loved everything about it. I felt like everywhere I went, I needed to represent Indiana. I don't know why I was that way. I just was. I had a lot of pride about where I was from. Maybe even so much so that as a young person, I was almost naive to the fact that I wasn't supposed to feel that way. I didn't know because I hadn't been a lot of places as a young kid. I didn't know that people from California thought Indiana was sleepy or geographically starved. I didn't know that people from New York thought it was a place that you fly over to get to Los Angeles. I didn't know that people from Chicago thought of it as their little brother. I didn't know any of those things. I just knew that when I was a kid, I had a sweatshirt that said Indiana, and that's where I was from. And then I learned that there was a sports team in town or in the area called the Indiana Hoosiers. And I knew that my dad liked to watch them, and then my uncle liked to watch them, and my grandfather liked to watch them. And so I liked to watch them too. And I loved being from Indiana. And so I became a fan of Indiana basketball. And I also liked Indiana football. And I went to Indiana football games. I remember vividly Andy Burt. Andy Burt was my buddy still is, but all through elementary school. And his grandfather was on the board of trustees. And Andy Burt took me to a football game, and we sat on the 50-yard line in like the fifth row and watched Indiana get absolutely annihilated by Michigan or Michigan State or named the Big Ten school. And Andy Burt at one point said, I'll probably take you to every game because we have season tickets and no one else wants to go. And at the time, I didn't even take it as a backhanded compliment, but rather I was thrilled because I got to go to Indiana football games. But I learned then, these guys are terrible. I didn't care. I was a kid. Then I went to school at IU and I went to the football games. You've heard me tell that whole story. I never thought in any of those times that Indiana was ever going to have a football program. Never thought it. I thought Indiana provided a service that allowed for the other Big Ten schools to have a homecoming opponent, and Indiana waited for Ohio State to come to town, and they booked that game in early October so they could get a nice aerial shot of Memorial Stadium with plenty of crimson in the stands. But what I knew was I was proud to be from Indiana. And yes, as a kid, I had my rivalries where I didn't like Purdue and I didn't like Notre Dame. I didn't like Butler. My sister went to Evansville and I tried to like them, but I couldn't because I was an Indiana fan. But I got older and I matured and I realized that being from Indiana is a little bit different. When you're from the state of Indiana, we have in the state of Indiana an understanding amongst one another that the one thing that we all have in common, we might go to different churches, we might speak different languages, we may have different gods, we may have different beliefs, we may have different politics. The one thing that we all have in common in this state, regardless of who you root for in sports, is that we are from a state that we understand we've got to work a little bit harder to let people know that we're okay. And in doing that, we feel a camaraderie and a chemistry amongst all of us. We feel a brotherhood and a sisterhood amongst all of us because the one thing that combines us all, the one tie that binds us, is the fact that we're all from a place that we know we can be proud of. But Indiana has not put out a football team in its existence, for the most part, that routinely we were proud of, at least in the result. And last night I sat there and I watched the game, and I'll mention it again. I thought to myself, I don't know how you explain to anybody from any other state in this union how this is so surreal, how this was the impossible. Because for something to be deemed or thought of as impossible, you have to at first even fathom or grasp what it is that you're discussing. And the thought of Indiana and a national championship in football were never even thought of or discussed. It was never even a barometer or a bar by which Indiana was even measured because it was so off base. 1,238 career games, and they'd won 41% of them. There ain't a single place in the world other than Major League Baseball where 411 gets you anything but failure. And yet, 2 years ago, they made a concerted effort. In Indiana and its football program, and Scott Dolson, the athletic director, and Pam Whitten, the president, went out and they got Curt Cignetti. And Curt Cignetti came in and immediately recognized that he was surrounded by a culture that only believed in the impossible being the fact that something was exactly that. And it was last night for the very first time in my life. I'm 53 years old and like 4 months now. And for the very first time in my life, I had the epiphany that impossible is an apostrophe away from I'm possible. I have possibility about me. And that football team last night is what made me have that epiphany. Because as they were sitting there, and Reese Davis, right after he said to Curt Cignetti, why not Indiana? Reese Davis eventually said, I think these guys want to sing that song. And I think that for some reason they played We Are the Champions. And I'm thinking, no, Reese. What they meant was they want to sing the fight song. And eventually they did. And that's, again, when it hit me. The fight song for Indiana University says, Indiana, 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 we're all for you. And as those players were singing it, and yes, there is a part of me deep down that was like, yeah, I've got a little bit of resentment because Fernando Mendoza, who's been here for 9 months, and D'Angelo Pons, who's a transfer from Florida, and Charlie Becker, who grew up in Tennessee, they can't really know everything what it means to be from Indiana. But then they were singing that song. And when they were singing that song, they were saying, Indiana, we're all for you. And that's when it dawned on me, that team was for all of us. That team was for all of us. And that team is all of us. Because the Indiana football program adopted the mentality of the rest of the state. We got to push the chest out a little more. We've got to collectively come together and rely on the thing that ties the binds of this state. A belief in one another, a culture of being from Indiana, a pride about being from Indiana, and a way of saying to the rest of the world, I don't care if you're from Oregon, Alabama, Miami, Ohio State, wherever it may be, we're going to come in and kick you in the teeth and show you we've worked pretty damn hard for this moment. And in the end, we don't have the mountains, we don't have the oceans, we don't have the skyscrapers, we don't have the tons of restaurants and live music you get in New York City. But we are the heartland. And in the heartland, we have heart and we have care and we have culture about one another. And that's what that football team was. And that's why today I am proud to say that I'm from Indiana and Indiana University. And I've always been proud of that. But I never thought it would be the football team that would give me some of the epiphanies and the feels that I got. But that's what it was. And I loved it. I loved seeing the number of people that went down to South Beach and went down to Miami and went down to Miami Gardens and turned Hard Rock Stadium into Heps Rock Stadium. And as I mentioned earlier, Hard Knock of Indiana to Hard Rock of that stadium and winning it. And there's no coincidence about the fact that along the way, Indiana on this journey, they beat Oregon soundly twice. They beat Ohio State. They beat Alabama. They beat Penn State. They beat Miami. They beat the Blue Bloods. They beat the teams that for years have thought of Indiana, if they even thought of Indiana football, they thought of it as a punchline. And Indiana beat all of them. And think about this. They beat Oregon in Oregon. They beat Miami in Miami. They beat Penn State in Penn State. And they beat Alabama in Los Angeles. They beat Blue Bloods in every corner of this country. Indiana football beat Blue Bloods in every corner of this country. And myself, JMV, James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Jeff Rickard, Greg Rakestraw, who's going to be on later because John's in the air right now coming back from Miami. All of us get paid and make our living trying to find the right words to say. All of us try to find the right words to say. And yet, sometimes it happens through spontaneity and energy, like what happened last night when I'm flipping the channels. I'm flipping the channels after the game, soaking it in, listening, and watching everybody celebrate, and I love it. And I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting there trying to think of what to say, how to encapsulate it, how to let people outside of Indiana know what this means to all of us, this improbability, this impossibility that Indiana and that football team saw as probable and possible. And I'm trying to come up with the right words, and then boom, I'm watching Channel 13, and I see Brian Jacobson. Dude's a year older than I am at North Central. Class ahead of me. He's actually younger than me. But he was probably one of those boy wonders that skipped a grade, as proven by the point he made last night. Brian Jacobson's being interviewed on Channel 13 by Dustin Groves down there in Miami, and he's trying to explain what this means in this moment of epiphany, this moment of exultation, this moment of energy just comes to him, and I say that's the perfect synopsis of what happened last night. The perfect synopsis right here. The perfect synopsis right here, Nathaniel. The perfect synopsis right here from last night. The timing not always perfect, but the wording was, I promise.
It's a surreal stunt. It's surreal, but it's real. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I took that off television, so bear with the sound quality there. It's surreal, and then he pauses, but it's real. And we're all waking up to that still today. And yes, my buddy Larry at Keystone Sports Review, another one of those. At Keystone Sports Review, Indiana through and through. And what did he say to me? He said, today's like a hangover day. Everybody is literally in a 50% haze because they haven't slept, and a 50% haze because you're looking outside and you're saying, I know the rest of the world thought that living in Indiana would be hell, but I must be because hell's frozen over and it's 7 degrees outside and Indiana's the national champion. But it's not. It's heaven here. It's heaven because our culture was on display for everyone to see, and that football team, led by a guy from Pittsburgh, whose father had coached his team to a national championship opportunity at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, had a chance and had a belief. And Indiana went to the ranks of James Madison, where Curt Cignetti was coaching at that point after being at Indiana, and brought him to Indiana University of Bloomington. And yes, the transfer portal helps. And yes, NIL helps. Understood. But you know what? Those guys that won that game last night know every word to that fight song because they exuded it. Indiana, oh, Indiana. Indiana, we're all for you. And that victory last night is for all of us. And all of you who listen to this show, all of you who listen to this program, it gives me all the feels to be able to sit here and celebrate. I only dreamed as a kid that I would be able to have this opportunity to celebrate these moments, and that's what we do today collectively. To the text line I go. This from Kurt from Florida. I was born in Elkhart, raised in Indiana, raised on IU basketball. My dad graduated in 1967. He was shedding a few tears of happiness as the game ended. My brother in California was over the moon. Friends of mine who went to IU were crying. This IU team will go down as one of the greatest teams to ever play the game. Final note, as a Florida State fan, I want to extend a sincere thank you to IU for beating the Hurricanes. Their fans here in Central Florida were extremely confident. Congratulations to the 2025 national champion, Indiana Hoosiers. Yes. Hey, Jake. I'll take my flat land over the mountains any day. Driving in the hills of southern Indiana is enough of a pain in the crotch. Fair enough. Jake, I'm a huge IU fan. The IU story is so good, even my non-sports-minded wife watched the game and was screaming at the refs. That captures the appeal of IU perfectly. If it was a movie, no one would believe it. I agree. But you know what? It did happen. It was surreal, but it's real. And yes, Reese Davis did say on television, why not Indiana? Said it last night, my phone blew up at this exact moment.
The first in the modern era, 16-0 team in the national champions, Curt Cignetti. Kurt, you said, why not Indiana? Why can't we do it here? Now it's become reality.
You heard the cash register going, right? I've only trademarked it, by the way, in terms of commerce for hats, T-shirts, magnets, billboards, and keychains and sweatshirts. You can say it on the air as much as you'd like, and you owe me no royalties. But we also asked earlier about those that you were thinking about, those that you were reflecting upon, those that you wished you could share it with. And some of you have called in to share exactly that. Terry Hutchins, a great name to remember, the longtime writer that covered Indiana. Earl Metzger, Ed Terrell. So true. All of them, right? Turnbuckle Bill that listens to this show and said yesterday, Fernando Mendoza with his legs would make a play that would win the game. How brilliant was that? Bob Johnson. My late friend Bob Jenkins. Bill Benner, who's on his way back. David Benner. So many. John joins us on the program at 239-1070. John, happy Hoosier National Champion Day.
Oh, it's a wonderful day, wonderful day. I've got to say, when I was watching that play at the 13-yard line, 4th and 5, when Cignetti called that quarterback draw, I did not see that coming at all. I don't think anyone saw it coming. I was not hopeful about what was about to happen. Unbelievable call about Cignetti. And then I wanted to calling that two other quick things. After Kumara blocked that punt, the celebration with Ratliff and I think it was Tyrese Tucker, those guys were on the moon, on the field. Just after he blocked it, they were so jubilant. It was fantastic. The other thing is, after Mendoza did that quarterback draw, he was walking over to the sideline, and I watched it several times. Aiden Fisher greeted him, and before he got to Aiden Fisher, Fisher just flexed both of his arms, indicating to him what an incredible beast play you've just committed. It was awesome.
John, you know one thing. Let me tell you two things, and I agree with all that. Let me give you two things that I noticed last night. Okay? The first being, when you were talking about that play with Mendoza, when we had Jeremy Gray on earlier this week, or last week, was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. And Jeremy Gray said, when I was asking him, give me a story about Cignetti. And he said that he went in May because he had to film something, Jeremy, the associate athletic director at IU, and they had to film something with Curt Cignetti, and he walked in, and Curt Cignetti was watching film of a game. And Jeremy looked down, and it was like Illinois and Northern Illinois from 2007. And Jeremy said, why are you watching a 20-year-old game of two teams that, only one of which you play? And he said, well, I'm watching red zone film. And Jeremy said, red zone film? That's 20 years ago. And Curt Cignetti said, we were number one in the country last year in red zone efficiency, and that's not by mistake. And he said after the game last night that when he called that play for Fernando Mendoza, it's because he saw a formation in the way they lined up, and he knew that if they ran a certain direction, that it was a misdirection from the way Miami had presented its hand from earlier. Now, that is savant-level depth preparation. Luck is when skill meets opportunity, and preparation and skill and opportunity all come together. And that's what you had in that play. That was not a lucky play. That was a by design play. The other thing that I noticed is when Mendoza scored that touchdown and they showed his parents in the crowd, and his mother is stricken with MS, and his mother's in a wheelchair. And you know what? I never saw the entire postseason run for the countless times they showed the Mendozas in the crowd, and it was a lot. They became the face of this run. His parents did. The one thing that I never saw was his father stand up to cheer. Now think about that. I never saw Fernando Mendoza's father stand up to cheer because his mother can't do that. And he wanted his wife to be alongside him as they celebrated their son. That's presence of mind, which very clearly is genetic. And that's leadership from both his mother and his father. And that is something that you see in a guy that's a Heisman Trophy winner that wins a national championship. Rick is up next.
Hello.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Jake. That was an awesome monologue that brought tears to my eyes. I moved to Indiana in '79 from Chicago via Pennsylvania, and I'm a big Penn State fan, but obviously a Hoosier. And when I got here as a senior in high school, I looked at my sister, who also graduated. I said, these people here, I know, as soon as I graduate high school, I'm out of here. 47 years later, I'm still here. I ran the mile for the great Sam Bell at IU. My niece moved here I went to dental school from Philadelphia 10 years ago, and I looked at Sam and I said, Sam, what do you think of Indiana? As soon as I graduate dental school, I'm out of here. 10 years later, she's still here, and she just had her first baby, Reese. They live in Broad Ripple. So that's what it means to be a Hoosier. I don't know why we stay. Like you said, there's no mountains. There's nothing. We got the 500, though. But it was just awesome being an IU grad. I got to go to the Rose Bowl, the Peach Bowl. I don't have your money, so I couldn't afford to go to the Orange Bowl.
Hey, I wasn't there either, brother. Come on now. I mean, hey. Now, let me ask you this, Rick. Just to show that now you are from Chicago, so you guys are a little tougher, but it sounds like you're outside right now, and it's a wind chill of -2. Does this mean also that Indiana's warmed your heart to the point where you're even warm outside?
Oh, heck yeah. And actually, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania and moved to the area.
All right, fair enough.
But, yeah, like when the Steelers played the Ravens in the championship game 12 years ago and it was snowing outside, I got on my deck at the my pond and I built a fire and listened to it.
Well, there you go. Rick, listen, we are happy to have you as a Hoosier, Rick. Happy to have you as a Hoosier. And if you're going to run that mile, don't do it outside anytime in the next couple of months. I can assure you that. No matter how tough that Pennsylvania, Illinois background made you. Daniel's up next.
Hey, Jake.
Daniel, how are you?
I just wanted to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Right on. Hey, I just wanted to shout out to whole Hoosier Nation, just a sincere thank you. The travel, the percentages of the fans, the 90% at the Rose Bowl, at the Peach Bowl, and really representing us well. I've heard nothing but glorifying, how nice they were, Midwestern nice. It's just being from Indiana. It's when you get your representation, it matters. And I felt like this team, this culture, this fans really, really represented us well. And I just want to say thank you to Fernando, to his family, to the fans. Just sincerely, thank you. This has been so much fun.
Daniel, I appreciate it. Last night it was remarkable that, and you heard Kirk Herbstreit mention it, and you heard Chris Fowler mention it. They were in virtually disbelief over the fact that Miami had a final drive for a national championship in their own home stadium and basically had to go to a silent count. They couldn't hear anything. It's remarkable they didn't get penalties. Now, winning it's one thing, sustaining it another. We'll get into that in a bit, but Jim and Pete, stick around. I'm going to get to you. I'll read more texts, and we'll continue to take phone calls at 239-1070 because this day, again, Indiana, Indiana, we're all for us. That's what that team was last night. That's what we continued to do today. I'd like to know who it was that you thought about that made you emotional or the reason why it's simply special to you at 239-1070. We continue and carry on with our pep rally after this.
Fire Validation country. Scotty Murray jumping up and down. Look at him embrace Harold Andrews and Bobby Knight. Here comes Benson. Benson now jumping up and down. Plays hands in the air. Unbelievable. Incredible. As the Hoosier ball club goes wild, they know they've won the national championship. We're down to 9 seconds to go. Now, Woodman inbounds. It is over! Indiana wins the national championship for 1981. Unbelievable as the players out of the floor are jumping up and down, hugging one another. Woodman just tossed the ball up in the air after he got it in. And Indiana Mountain has won the national championship for the second time under Bobby Knight and the fourth time in the school's history. Alford trying to work himself free. Smart down on to Darryl Thomas. 8 seconds to go. Out to Smart. Baseline jump shot in the air. Gone! 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1. The Hoosiers have won the national championship. Bob Knight being congratulated by his assistant coaches, his son Patrick out there, and there is pandemonium. There's the Superdome as Indiana won it.
Looks, throws it down the field, and it is intercepted by Indiana. Wow, what a play! And it is Jamari Sharp who comes up with a pick. And the rags to riches story for Indiana football comes to conclusion, and they are the national champions of 2026. What a football team!
Don Fisher has been on the microphone now for 4 national championships in Indiana University athletics. The first 3 that you heard there, the 86-68 victory over Michigan in 1976, capping the last undefeated season in college basketball history. The 1981 victory at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, 63-50 over North Carolina. In 1987, the 74-73 victory over Syracuse for the national championship in basketball. And then the most recent college football team to go undefeated and untouched, 16-0, the Indiana Hoosiers. Last night, Don Fisher on the call. Certainly, you have to wonder what happens with Indiana moving forward. There is no reason to believe that they are now not just crashed through the door into college football's elite status, but also are there to stay. When you consider the NIL, the transfer portal, the question is simply going to be, in today's culture of college football, how long do you maintain a group together? Alberto Mendoza, it is already reported, out into the transfer portal at least. We will see whether or not he returns. But keep in mind, Hoover, the quarterback from TCU, the nation's leading passer, coming into Indiana next year in the transfer portal. And so we'll see whether or not. But that is one of the names that I know people looked at and liked. Alberto Mendoza, who, by the way, wore jersey number 16, the number of wins that Indiana got this year, after having only, 4 times in school history, had a 9-win season. It was a time where 8 wins and simply going over 500 was the goal that was acceptable, beyond acceptable, almost unfathomable. It is so surreal, but it's real. Bob joins us at 239-1070. Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good, Jake. I just wanted to say, a blank statement that this win was for all Hoosiers worldwide. I mean, the Alumni Association I had seen on the news had put together watch parties all over the United States. I think it was Fox 59 that actually put a map up. And they were helping, like getting them rally towels and everything. And the amount of places that were doing this was incredible. Just incredible.
Bob, did you go to... go ahead.
I just wanted to take a minute to thank you personally on another side note, Jake. I've been trying to get a hold of you through the holiday season because I wanted to thank you for my family and my daughter personally, because my daughter works for Firefly, and you gave them so much credit and so many kudos. Like I said, I've been trying to get a hold of you for a while, and I just wanted to thank you and the station personally.
Well, Bob, I mentioned earlier, and I appreciate that. Maybe I belabor the point, but in Indiana, one of the things we have that makes us unique, whether we're born here, raised here, is we have camaraderie and appreciation for one another. We have community here. I've lived other places. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in Lawrence, Kansas. I've lived in St. Louis. And this isn't all of those places are part of my journey, and there are things about all of them that I liked. And maybe I'm biased because I grew up here, Bob. But I've always felt like in Indiana, we have a camaraderie and an understanding and an appreciation and a respect for one another because we have to just try a little harder. Because we are the one that on the pregame show, 7 of the 8 analysts pick the other team. And the one that picks Indiana happens to live here and gets it, right? But a community truly is defined not by its upper echelon, but rather how it treats and tries to uplift those that are struggling, which is what Firefly does and why I believe in it. And it does so with our most precious resource, which is the youth of Indianapolis. So I didn't do anything, Bob. Your daughter, and the heroes that work there are the ones that do all that. My job is the easy part, and that is simply letting people know the great work that they do. Bud is up next.
Hi, Jake.
Bud, how are you?
Bud from Castleton. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you.
I'm doing great today. I want to thank you for taking the call, and I want to dedicate this. I talked to you once before. Actually, you called me off the air one night. Yeah, very, very nice gesture. But fraternity brother of mine, high school friend I went to Martinsville High School with, fraternity brother at IU. We graduated in 76, and of course the undefeated season. His name is Tim Bray. We used to call him Timo. Timothy Bray. He's, like many fans have already spoken to you, and like myself, a diehard Hoosier fan. Having graduated from 76, for 50 years later, having this occur with the national championship in football is truly unbelievable. But I definitely would have loved for him to have seen the game. He passed away, unfortunately, October 30th. He actually flew to Oregon, retired obviously. He flew to Oregon to the first game, and he just would be really very pleased.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bud, I appreciate that. And if Tim was there at Autzen Stadium in Oregon and saw that performance, then he knew. Because after that game, I think everybody had an indication that, you know what, this was a possibility. And, yeah, they had to come back and they had to overcome the Iowa game after that. You know, the hangover from the Oregon game maybe. And then Iowa, they struggled a little bit and they found a way. And Penn State, they found a way. Bud, my condolences to you that Tim wasn't there to be able to watch it with you, at least in the physical sense. But, of course, we take a comfort, I guess, in the fact that he was there in the spiritual sense. And Indiana got it done for him. Because, like I said, Indiana, we're all for you and all for us in this. Jim is up next. Hi, Jim.
Hey, has anyone mentioned the fact that Indiana's the only college to have undefeated basketball and football seasons?
They're the most recent to do it. UCLA has also accomplished the feat, by the way.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, UCLA, a little bit different, though, Jim, and I'll tell you why. UCLA in 1954 was 9-0-1. They had a tie in there. And that tie included, they also tied for the national championship because back in those days, it was simply who was number one at the top of the AP and the United Press International poll, and they split that year. I think it was Notre Dame that won the other. But they technically were, by at least one of the polls, the national champion, and they were unbeaten. And then, of course, John Wooden won 83 straight games or whatever it was, so they had 2 undefeated seasons in there as well. But, yes, I mean, it's remarkable that Indiana right now currently holds the most recent undefeated team in both sports.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it, Jim. Pete is up next. Pete, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to share this with you. My cousin, who I'm in business with, was a freshman on the 67 Rose Bowl team, was very close with a lot of the players like Terry Cole, who's passed away. And he's always said, if they make it to the Rose Bowl, I'm going. So he got to go to the Rose Bowl, see a lot of his old teammates who are still around but not in great health. Had a wonderful trip, sent me lots of pictures. And this morning, his only text was, I'm glad I'm alive to see it.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable, isn't it, Pete? What's your cousin's name?
Hank.
What's Hank's last name?
Hank Pogue.
Pogue, P-O-G-U-E?
Yes, sir.
Hank Pogue. I got him on the list. And you know what, Hank, I'm glad you're alive as well to see it, right? And, you know, look, Pete, I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to illustrate. It's difficult to enunciate to people how impossible it was because it was never fathomable. If you were to ask me, what's the level of like stunned of the state of Indiana that Indiana won the football national championship, college football, my answer would be, I don't know, because there was no other alternative. It was never even thought about. You know, somebody just sent me a text. And this is, think about this for a second. Hey, Jake, what would the odds have been in 1991 that in my lifetime, Indiana would win a college football national championship before Notre Dame? Great question. I mean, who possibly could have thought that? Indiana before any program. Honestly, who would have thought that Indiana would win one before Minnesota? The only thing I can compare it to, there is one team. There's one team, one thing that I thought about. I mentioned it the other day. And I'll get back into that, and I want your continued calls on it. I love days like this where literally I'm just the town crier, and you folks carry the show. Not because I don't want to carry the show, not because I was up late, but because this is a celebration statewide, and we're the flagship of all of it, and I'm here for it.
listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Another song that was big for Indiana's last national championship. That's how long it's been. 239-1070, the telephone number. Hey, Jake. The profundity about Mendoza's father never standing to cheer resonated with me to my core. I was watching the game at KSR with Larry and Paula Kramer, and when the game was over, Paula was gushing about Mendoza, but not his sports skills, but his strength of character and depth of faith. It is refreshing to be in the presence of someone who has a passion for not only his sport and his gift, but also his human connection. Goodness to his core. I've said so many times that good kids are no accident. His parents hit a home run. They instilled that goodness to the core. And again, if you're just joining us, I had mentioned earlier two things that jumped out at me in that game. One was that Curt Cignetti, after the game, was asked about the decision on the Mendoza run. And he said, well, they showed a formation that I knew that if we showed it again and went that way, we could run to the left side because of the way they stacked it earlier. They were going to anticipate something different. He went into this X's and O's thing. And I was taken back to when we had Jeremy Gray on last week, the associate athletic director at Indiana, and he mentioned a story where he had to go to Curt Cignetti's office in the middle of May. And Curt Cignetti was watching game film of a game from 20 years ago of two teams that Indiana didn't face that year. And they were in the red zone. And he said, what are you watching? And Cignetti said, I'm watching red zone film. And Jeremy said, of a game from 20 years ago? And he said, we were number one in red zone efficiency, Jeremy. It's not by accident. It's called preparation and the understanding of the moment. And you can learn preparation and understanding of the moment from your coach. But then I also mentioned the other thing that I observed, and that is that when Fernando Mendoza scored that touchdown, they showed his parents in the crowd, and I realized every time they've shown his parents, which has been a lot during the playoff run, every time they showed the Mendozas, his father never once stood up to cheer. Never once stood up to cheer. Because his mother is suffering, not suffering's maybe the wrong word, but his mother has MS. It's not my place to say whether or not she's suffering from that, but she's stricken with MS. And so his father had the presence of mind to know that to celebrate his son's accomplishments is to make sure that he's doing so with his wife and Fernando's mother. And that's presence of mind in the moment. That's understanding of the moment. And you can learn presence of mind in the moment from your coach. But you can also learn it from example or inheritance from your parents. Doug. What's up, Doug?
How you doing?
You can turn down the radio, Doug. I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Hey, I'm good too.
How you doing?
Turn down the radio, Doug. I'm good.
Doug, you got to turn down the radio. There you go.
I'm grateful for Don Fisher. How about that?
Don Fisher on the call, man. We played it earlier, Doug. 4 national championships now he's called, and you can only imagine how many bad football games he's sat through, right?
Oh, exactly. Exactly, yes.
I mean, the number of times, Doug, that he sat in sleet storms watching Indiana get beat by Rutgers and 5 overtime games against Akron and kicking over trash cans after beating Virginia on a Hail Mary and sitting through all of that. And you could tell Don Fisher at the end of the game, Doug, I didn't know whether or not he was going to be emotional or not. And he did not tear up, but I could tell it was there. And I could tell yesterday in talking to him, it was there. And that's a good call. So I appreciate it, Doug. Molly. Now, Molly's a female listener. Molly, have you been? Are you a part of our tally of 35 female listeners, or are you a new female listener?
I'm a new female listener.
If you could, please, Nathaniel, do you happen to have the breaking news sounder? If you could please play. Molly, stick with us. We're going to play the breaking news sounder. Thank you, Nathaniel. This just in. We now have 36 female callers in the history of this program, or listeners. 36 female listeners. Molly, you're number 36. What's up?
All right, I love that. Hey, Jake, I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate your broadcast. It was unbelievable last night watching IU win the national championship. So fired up. I have one small thing I have to tell you.
Okay. Is this going to make me mad?
I'm probably, yeah.
Okay.
But you got to get it right if you're going to be broadcasting out here. So it's Indiana, our Indiana, we're all for you.
Okay. So I left out the hour is what you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that. Because it's the second part of it, right? Indiana, I guess you're right. It's kind of like, Molly, I'll be honest with you. Do you ever listen to the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner?
Yeah.
You know the most common misdone word in that, right?
What?
Because it's supposed to be, it's or, like over, the land or the free. And everybody says land for the free or whatever it is, right? Everybody gets it wrong. So I probably have said Indiana, Indiana my entire life. So I will gladly accept your correction on that, Molly.
All right, we got to get it right. Come on.
Molly, how long have you listened to this program, Molly?
Only for about
20 minutes?
The last couple of years because my fiance is obsessed.
Well, here's the thing. If that's the only time I need corrected, I'll take it. Right, Molly? I'll take it. And if you were a guy, I probably would have pushed back, but I know my place that, listen, a female listener 36, I need as many of you female listeners as possible, Molly. So I will gladly accept your critique and improve upon it.
Call and correct anytime.
That's right. That is correct. That's a side business you could do. All right, we'll squeeze in Justin real quick. Justin.
Hey, man, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Okay.
Just got a couple things I wanted to say real quick. First off, go Hoosiers, historical year. I actually am a singer-songwriter. I wrote a song called Can I Get a Sig for the IU football team this year. Would love if everybody checked that song out. I'm not a great singer, but I think everyone – I think Hoosier Nation would appreciate the lyrics. It's called Can I Get a Sig?
All right.
And then one thing I wanted to point out that I haven't heard anybody mention that I think is just a cool little fact is obviously Miami is a lucky place for Indiana championships, seeing as how the Colts won their Super Bowl there years ago.
Here's the other thing, Justin. Indiana has now atoned for it too because they've allowed us to get the taste out because that's also the place that the last time the Colts were there, they lost the Hank Baskett game. I shouldn't say that about Hank Baskett, but the onside kick game. Pierre Garçon just as guilty in that game of dropping the ball. But yes, same stadium where the Colts won it, no question. We'll take a quick recess. We'll come back. Jerry, you are up next at 239-1070. I'll read some tweets and texts as well as we celebrate Indiana as national champions here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Hey there, Jake Query. Molly was just correcting me on the fact I got the lyrics wrong, right? I get it. That's what we're always trying to do is make sure that we're correcting the things that aren't right. Like, for example, you guys, if you're trying to correct just your body, get back in shape, get the energy back that you might need, get your, maybe you have ED, you suffer from that. Maybe you need peptide therapy. Guess what? Game Day Men's Health is here with clinics in the Indy metro area, including Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood. And I love Game Day because they come up with a game plan specific to you. That's right. You go in and you meet at Game Day with their staff there, and they're going to work through with you something that is whatever your goals may be. Whether you want the energy of a testosterone replacement, like I mentioned, maybe you want a peptide therapy. You just simply want to get back in the game. You want to get back to that point where you're feeling yourself and you are getting the best treatment possible from Game Day Men's Health. Each patient receives high-quality testosterone services, if that's what they're deciding to do, from FDA-approved pharmacies right here in the United States. That's the other great thing about it. FDA-approved pharmacies, so you're talking about safe and efficient at Game Day Men's Health. Get yourself back in the game. Raise that game. Come up with a game plan and let Game Day Men's Health be there for you. Get a consultation. Set an appointment. GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours. You are not going to believe the company.
This company. You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company. On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Don Fisher on the call last night. I just don't know that even 20 years from now, we will fully grasp what it was that we witnessed. You know, we talk in this town, we still talk about spin to win, Danny Sullivan, the Keith Smart shot, the Watt shot from Christian Watford. You know, the do-everything performance of Rod Woodson in the bucket game. Rick Mount's shot to lift Purdue into the Final Four. We talk about the big win in the snow of Catholics versus convicts of Notre Dame and Miami in 1988. We go on and on and on. You know, the big win in 93 in Notre Dame over Florida State. The incredible run that Butler had and Matt Howard putting it back in to knock off, I think it was Pitt. And then the Gordon Hayward shot of what could have been. But we talk about, and, you know, obviously it goes without saying, the Colts winning in the rain. The Halliburton moments. The Reggie in New York. High school basketball, Stacey Turan shot, Bobby Plump shot. We talk in Indiana about great sports moments and great sports memories for years. And for so long, it was a foregone conclusion. It was an understanding. It was an acceptance of our sport reality that Indiana football just was never going to be a part of that. Just wasn't. You know, I vividly recall being in one of the first years that we did fantasy football. And there was a guy that drafted Trent Green. Because the guy that drafted him, Joel Johnson's his name, the late Joel Johnson, great dude. And he was a Butler guy, but he's like, oh, Trent Green, you know, he played in Indiana, and the Rams just signed him to a big contract, and he's going to be great. And literally like 15 minutes later, they were watching ESPN or whatever. They come in and they say, Trent Green has been diagnosed with a torn knee, like his knee is out for the year. And as a joke, Joel says, fine. So his next draft pick, he's like, I'll take the guy that's backing up Trent Green, Kurt Warner. We're like, the guy from the running back from the Seahawks? No, Kurt Warner with a K. Okay. And the St. Louis Rams, who had not won more than 6 games in a decade, went on to barnstorm their way to a Super Bowl. And, you know, the Rams had been in Super Bowls before as the Los Angeles Rams. And when you're the Los Angeles Rams and you had Deacon Jones and the Fearsome Foursome and Merlin Olsen, and then later had the running prowess of Eric Dickerson, you know, it's not like the Rams were a nothing franchise. So even that doesn't compare. But it kind of does because it was just out of nowhere. Hey, Jake. My teenage sons will be talking about the Mendoza run when they're my age in the same way I talk about the Keith Smart shot. That's exactly right. This from Gary. The main person I was thinking about last night was my dad. He's still alive and was able to enjoy the game on TV. He used to drive me to IU games from southern Indiana, and we would listen to Leonard's Losers, where we would always say, Leonard's Losers, the Hoosiers. We sat through a lot of terrible football games, but I didn't know any better. Last night was for him, guys like him, the people that really love it. Hey, Jake, this is Josh from Noblesville. I just landed in Cincinnati and went to the game. Wow, just wow, amazing. Beautiful stadium, but terrible trying to get out to the ride-share location. Didn't get back to the hotel till 2:50 for an AM flight at 5:30. It was tired, but well worth it. Hey, listen, when your team wins, can you imagine if Indiana had lost? How bad that would be? Jake, who do you think was more excited about IU's win last night? IU grad Kevin Bowen, IU grad Derek Schultz, or Illinois grad James Boyd? I'm going with James Boyd, they said. Nah, Derek was. So was Kevin. But I know Kevin's a Notre Dame fan. Hey, Jake, I'll bet you Signetti and Mendoza will be involved in this year's Indianapolis 500. Signetti drives the pace car, and Mendoza waves the green flag. I would not rule that out. Hey, Jake, your monologue to start your show is what made me emotional. I couldn't be more proud to be a Hoosier after hearing that. I appreciate that. Definitely appreciate it. Dave from Beech Grove. Jake, the game last night was wonderful. It's a shame the referees took the game off. Did you know that players who play in the national championship game can enter the portal January 20th to 24th? The regular portal closed January 16th. Yes, Alberto Mendoza has entered the transfer portal. Fernando's little brother has entered the transfer portal. Jake, this from Vicky Rice. I was thinking about being your 37th female caller today, but I think I'll wait for a later date. But I'm so proud to be a Hoosier. She says, and the dogs of Mussman, by the way, the dogs of Mussman are her late husband, Dick, and his brother, Doug, and a group of people that used to all get together and basically crash the gates of the northeast end of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to get their front row parking spot to watch the Indy 500 from the infield. I'm so glad that it happened, and the dogs of Mussman would be watching it.
Can we count her as listener number 37?
Yeah, we can. I think we can count Vicky. I mean, the fact that she texted in, right? Jake, what about the Fever winning in 2012? Absolutely. But, it's funny. When the Fever won it in 2012, it almost didn't have the same oomph as if they, like, what their run that they just had because, the profile of the WNBA has obviously increased. 239-1070, the telephone number. Jerry is up next. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, how you doing today, Jake?
I'm good. Hopefully you can tell I'm good, right?
Oh, yes, sir. It's a great day to be a Hoosier.
It is that, Jerry.
Well, my name's actually Kerry with a K, but that's
my apologies.
Okay. My father was named Jerry and drove me to IU football games. Hey, I'm calling in regards to my Aunt Jane. I grew up in Wisconsin. Grew up in Rensselaer, went to IU. Her husband graduated of IU as well. True Hoosiers. And last night she was so excited. And she's 91 years old, and she's a ball of fire. The only thing she said was she wished they would have played the Indiana alma mater song. And I thought, well, that's great. Maybe Jake's got it, and you can play that sometime today.
Tell me Jane's last name.
Okay, Zebendon, Zebendon, and she is a sweetheart.
Jane Z, better known as Jane Zebendon, right? I will queue up. I will find the Indiana alma mater song, right? What is it, Gloriani Frangipani?
You got it.
They got that Frangipani room up there in the Union. I know that much. We will try to find it for you, Carrie, and I'll get it played. We have yet another. Teresa joins the program. Hi, Teresa. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Have you called the show before, Teresa?
No, but I listen to you.
Now, be honest with me. Is your radio broken, or do you really listen to this program?
Oh, I do. Believe me, because I do. I am a Notre Dame fan. I'm a fan since I was born, but I always support any Indiana school.
Now, Teresa, sarcastically, you know what I usually ask to most Notre Dame fans when I first meet them?
What?
What year did you graduate from Dayton? That's usually my first question. You can at least get a chuckle out of that, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can.
So what year did you go to Xavier? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Teresa, what's on your mind today?
I just wanted to shout out to Don because it's long overdue. He has been the voice of the Hoosiers for, I think, 53 years now. And I was just so happy for him, and his wife, Susie, and I have been friends since grade school. And I know that she has been wanting this for him as well, as far as all Hoosiers for that matter. But I'm just so proud to be a Hoosier fan. And like I said, even though Notre Dame did not win it last year and IU won it this year, I will always root for an Indiana school.
You know what? I know Don and Susie both well. I mean, I probably know Susie better than Don, actually. And yes, Don Fisher, the consummate Teresa professional, because to be able to, listen, to be the voice of Indiana basketball for so long, it's a privilege to be able to be the voice of either. But you got to call great games over the years. As a matter of fact, Nathaniel, cue this up. We put this together. This is Don Fisher's 4 national championship calls that he's had now. The first you will hear is 1976 when Indiana went undefeated. They defeated Michigan 86-68 at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Again in 81 under Bob Knight, they won 63-50. They obviously had won it in 40 and 53, but this is when Don Fisher was on the call. 81, you will hear the end of the 81 game. Then the 87 game, the Keith Smart shot. And then last night, whoever would have guessed that national championship number 4 for Don Fisher would be on the football side of things. But after all of those years and never wavering from his loyalty towards the football program, he was able to call it for football as well. All 4 of them as they sounded from Don Fisher.
Scotty Murray jumping up and down. Look at him embrace Harold Andrews and Bobby Knight. Here comes Benson. Benson now jumping up and down. Plays hands in the air. Unbelievable. Incredible. As the Hoosier ball club goes wild, they know they've won the national championship. We're down to 9 seconds to go. Now, Woodman inbounds. It is over. Indiana wins the national championship for 1981. Unbelievable as the players out of the 4 are jumping up and down, hugging one another. Woodman just tossed the ball up in the air after he got it in. And Indiana Mountain has won the national championship for the 2nd time under Bobby Knight and the 4th time in the school's history. Alford trying to work himself free. Smart down on to Daryl Thomas. 8 seconds to go. Out to Smart. Baseline jump shot in the air. Gone! 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1. The Hoosiers have won the national championship. Bob Knight being congratulated by his assistant coaches, his son Patrick out there, and there is pandemonium. There's the Superdome as Indiana won it.
Looks, throws it down the field, and it is intercepted by Indiana. Wow, what a play! And it is Jamari Sharp who comes up with a pick. And the rags to riches story for Indiana football comes to conclusion, and they are the national champions of 2026. What a football team!
That's how it sounded last night. Don Fisher on the call. Speaking of calls, a guy that had an epic one yesterday, and I thought about him last night, and I even posted it. Turnbuckle Bill joins us on the show. Bill, I got to tell you, you know what I'm going to give you credit for here, right?
Yep.
You said yesterday.
Well, you know what they say, you know what they say, man. You know about the sun shining on dogs behind. That's pretty much that sums it up for me, pretty much. But
well, listen, it shined on you and the Hoosiers, right?
You betcha. Hey, man, the one thing about the 1981 championship is earlier that day, President Reagan got shot.
Correct.
And there was some. I remember there was some talk as to whether or not they were going to even play the game. Of course, that was back in 1981, before sports became as big as it is now, and you wouldn't consider doing it now, but yeah, that was kind of.
Well, do you remember his statement, Ronald Reagan's statement, to announce that he, the White House statement to say that the president was okay and that he had survived, the shooting from John Hinckley. It had a quote or a statement, and I'm paraphrasing it, from Ronald Reagan, where he said, I'm thankful to the Secret Service, yada, yada, yada. And then he said, all in all, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. And to quote a phrase from that, and meaning that he would rather be at the national title game. And yes, I remember that delay, not delay, but the thought that there could be a delay, right? But then they ended up playing the game. But Bill, you also said yesterday that you believed that Mendoza would be the difference in the game with his legs. And that was a play that will live in Indiana lore forever.
Yeah, I got lucky on that one, and I just wanted to say, as far as Alberto goes and everything, he's going to end up going to Georgia Tech. That's the place that's going to be able to pay him the kind of money that he deserves. But I wouldn't want to come back to the university where my older brother just won a national championship, because how do you follow that act?
Yeah, it's a good point. There's a lot of pressure there, right? For sure. But, Bill, listen, I wanted to tell you this, okay? And I said this to you yesterday, but I'm going to say it again, okay?
Okay.
In the times that I have done sports talk radio, which has been longer now than I can imagine, when I was doing the show with Derek, virtually any time, and there were plenty of times that we did that show, or that I've done shows where we did remotes, or we went to weird areas, and there were 6 people that showed up, and Derek and I were like, man, are there more than 10 people listening to this deal? And you personified loyalty to the core, because you came and supported us and have done so from day one and never wavered in it. And there was never able, for me, a way to repay you properly or let you know how much I appreciated it. And so that's why last night I thought of you, because as I watched that game, I know your loyalty, I know your unwavering support, and I know your never cracked belief in Indiana football. And to see you be one of those that was represented by what they did to pay off your belief in them and give you that joy. There are many that I thought of, but you were right at the top of that list, because I felt like I shared in Indiana football in understanding and being rewarded by your loyalty.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind to say. And the old KSR days, man, those were just really, really special.
It was awesome, right?
Oh, absolutely. But I kind of wanted to say something about Miami, and this is something that I noticed. Miami, although they're obviously a very talented team and great defense, but what a classless group. I mean, their quarterback, Mendoza was looking for him to shake his hand, and their quarterback walked off the field and refused to shake his hand. And then Fletcher, who broke that 57-yard run, took a swing at was Taylor.
I saw that
for IU,
and I don't know what precipitated that, because Fletcher also went out of his way to go congratulate Mendoza, which was the weird part of it, right? And I don't know in what order those two things took place. And I have not heard, Bill, and I listen, defensively, Mendoza was very complimentary of their defense after the game. And I don't know what precipitated that stuff at the end. And I did see Carson Beck. Yeah, that was not a good look to leave the game. You never know what goes into those things, whether or not they, sometimes I notice like in NBA games, a lot of times the coaches will just look at each other and kind of wave, and that suffices, if you will, because I got stuff to get to. But I don't know what the origin of a lot of that stuff was. And I have not heard because obviously most people that went to the game are on their way back now. So I haven't heard from people down there just how the fans that were in the stadium were. Because I know Oregon fans, and I saw Oregon last night. Oregon sent a post congratulating Indiana, and I heard from Indiana fans that were at the Peach Bowl that Oregon fans were fabulous. And I've heard from Indiana fans that went to Autzen Stadium that the Oregon fans were just absolutely fantastic. Great people, sportsmanlike, all of that. But the Miami thing, no, and they were some look. Curt Cignetti at halftime calling out what he thought were the pass interference calls that went overlooked and the excessive plays. That was uncharacteristic from Cignetti even. So that shows you just how chippy things might have been. Paul is up next at 239-1070. Hi, Paul.
Hey, what's up, Jake?
Not much.
Man, I just want to start with. Never thought I'd see this. Obviously, none of us did. But, I've been thinking, how to describe what's going on here. And, I mean, so, like, you got BC before Christ, and I don't know what AD stands for, but if we start saying before Cignetti for IU and then after Dolson for the timeline, man, I mean, come on.
Before Cignetti and after Dolson, right? Isn't it like anodymini? Yeah. I think it's is it anodymini? Is that what it stands for? But yes.
Something like that, man. Yeah, yep.
Before.
But yeah, like I said, I've been thinking about that this whole run. I just ain't want to jinx it before,
okay,
you know what I mean?
So what you're getting at is Indiana's last national championship in basketball. That was 1987 BC, right? and then this one is their national championship in football is 4 AD. Is that how this works?
After AD.
Well,
after Dolson got there.
Yeah, 4 after Dolson, right? 4 AD or whatever. Yep. However, I mean, Dolson's been there in capacity forever, right? But in terms of as athletic director, Paul, I love it. Good call for certain. That's we're going to call him Timeline Paul. You're the director of timekeeping for the company, Paul. You have a new assignment. Ralph is up next. Ralph, you're up.
Hi, Jake. How are you?
I'm well.
This one's for Ralph Fry Sr., who drug me down to Bloomington when I was 8 years old and would go once or twice a year. And then I moved around, but I'd always come back for a tailgate every year. And I remember Dad hitting the steering wheel one time and saying, I've seen a lot of lousy football. I wish Dad could have seen some real good Indiana football. And I'll leave you with one of my favorite Hoosier fan and the most loyal Hoosier fan I know, Bill Benner. I was up at the Star one time, and he had his transistor radio, was listening to IU football, and they scored, and I don't know who they were playing, but I remember they were getting beat 56 to like 14 or 17, and Robin made the comment, hey, Bill, at least they scored again, and Bill took the transistor radio and threw it against the wall and broke it. So,
now, hold on, Ralph. So, Ralph, here's another thing, okay?
Okay.
I know you're friends with Robin Miller, right?
Yes, he was my best friend. Yeah.
And I understand that. He was your best friend and you were his, no question, right? I know, I don't know Robin the way you did, right? But I knew the love and the respect that he had for you and vice versa, right? And
yes.
And Robin was a Ball State guy. I know that. And Robin was a cynic. But I would have loved to have seen what Robin had to say about it because, Robin would have masterfully put into word what the rest of us could not in terms of trying to describe it, right?
Well, no doubt about it. But the one thing is, unfortunately, Robin probably would have lost a lot of money betting against him.
That's probably true. Robin would be hitchhiking somewhere around Valdosta right now, trying to get back home, right?
Yes, he would, believe me.
because he tried to call Bill Benner, but Bill had already broken his cell phone from earlier. Yes, no question about it. Ralph, I appreciate it, man. Be good as always.
Okay, and go Hoosiers.
There you go. That is Ralph on the line. All right, we'll come back. We'll continue the conversation. I will read the texts. I will read the tweets as well. A couple more to get to from that. And we might as well round it out in this day-long edition of Celebrating Indiana at 239-1070. I would love to hear from the rest of you as well. It's how it sounded last night. Indiana winning the national championship in college football. I've had to say that about 7 times so far today. It still seems surreal. You know, jokingly, I uttered the phrase when we were talking about free agency a couple of years ago on the morning show when I was on the show, and we were talking about whether or not the Pacers could lure someone to come here, and I uttered the phrase for the first time. I don't know. I mean, they could sign with a couple of teams, but, why not Indiana? And I stopped myself and said, it's kind of catchy. Why not Indiana? And it really was just kind of a fun, flippant phrase at first. Last night, you can imagine my surprise when my phone blew up because during the trophy presentation, I actually heard this from Reese Davis.
The first in the modern era 16-0 team in the national champions. Kurt, you said, why not Indiana? Why can't we do it here? Now it's become reality.
Why not Indiana? Why can't we do it here? And that's what I've been talking about all day. Last night, as I was watching it, and I was thinking to myself, and literally, I was laying in bed, actually, and I thought to myself, I always thought it was impossible. And I know that I am probably melodramatic when I say it. I know it probably sounds overly, dramatic when I say it. But I had never thought about this. I never realized that the word impossible features I'm possible. Meaning, I'm a possibility to do something. It is possible I can. And forever, when it came to Indiana football, we never even thought of that as the possibility. Because that's a program that has been stuck in beyond mediocrity. The bottom of the barrel, the laughing stock, everyone's homecoming game. Got to play Ohio State in the aesthetic time of the year. Let's do it in October so that we can get an aerial shot of Memorial Stadium with the beautiful leaves and a crimson-packed crowd. That's what Indiana football was. And that group last night, I had mixed feelings and emotions about Indiana suddenly getting good in football because part of me felt like it was compromised. I'm just being honest. Part of me, and I wish I wasn't wired this way, but part of me looked at it and thought, I'm from Indiana. I grew up in Indiana. I've tried to represent Indiana well. I've tried to let people know when I go places that I'm from Indiana and that we're a really good place, that we have good people, that we have good values, that it's pretty here, that it's a bigger city than you think. We have better sports teams than we're given credit. We've produced a lot of talented people. I always try to do that. I try to be Indiana's biggest cheerleader. And so therefore, there was a small part of me because I grew up wanting to represent Indiana on any stage that I had, which were not a lot. And so there was part of me that kind of resented that this representation from Indiana was actually coming by way of players that were on loan from Miami or purchased from Nashville or brought in from James Madison, whatever it might be. But as they were celebrating, and each time they scored, you could see them celebrating their teammates. You could see them arm in arm, the chemistry, the camaraderie of that team. And again, I mentioned, I thought of the fight song. And thank you, by the way, for the correction when I said Indiana, oh, Indiana. It's Indiana, our Indiana. But the most important part of that fight song, we're all for you. We're all for you. But that football team was all for us. The us of this state collectively and what it is that we represent, and the us that they felt. Because they were not about individuals. Kurt Signetti said it. We are the sum of our parts. And that's how they came across. That was a group that was selfless. That was a group that represented what it is and what it means to be from Indiana. And you can be from Notre Dame or Butler or Evansville or Indiana State or Ball State or Southern Indiana or Franklin or Trine or Huntington or Goshen or Earlham or Hanover or UIndy. You can be from those schools and still feel the pride that Indiana was represented, culturally speaking, on the biggest stage. And yes, to most of us, it was thought to be impossible. But that was a group of players that found possibility within so long as they collectively did it as we. And that's what was awesome about it. Chris joins us. What's up, Chris?
Hi, Jake, and good afternoon. Today is my 56th birthday, and what a fantastic gift this team brought to me last night and all of Hoosier Nation. And I think back to when I was 11 years old and first got a taste of IU sports when I listened to Don Fisher call the national championship game for our basketball team. And it got me thinking, and I'd like your perspective as a member of the broadcast community, what it might be like to call 2 national championships for 2 undefeated teams after 50 years of broadcasting for a school. And I know I'm not going to ask you to talk for Fish, but would you give me your perspective as a member of a broadcaster and the impact that your voice has on this great city and state, what that might mean to you?
Well, it's a great question. I actually asked Don that the other day when we had him on, Chris, about it and what he said in his answer. So I'll paraphrase what he said. But what Don said was simply that it was a privilege to be part of a school that he loved in Indiana and an athletic program that gave him an opportunity, and that he was grateful to continue with that opportunity. Now, I would hope that he also understands that you're not given that opportunity without showing, it's one thing to be given a chance. It's another thing to then prove that you were deserving of that opportunity. And for him, he has to know in the back of his mind that over the course of 50 years, for him to do it for that long and to still have his fastball without him, it's a testament to his craft, right? But I think that part of when you do what we do for a living, there's like a little journalistic piece of you where you realize that you're not the story, you're simply the illustrator of what the story is. And so I think that understanding is probably partially how, professionally speaking, he has been so good and so perfect for so long. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah, it sure does. I just know that, yes, it's not about him, but I'm going to tell you that his voice, much like the voices of Jack Buck in St. Louis, much like the voice of Harry Carey, much like the voice of even yours that people listen to on a day-to-day basis, they're very impactful. And I'm gonna shed a lot of tears when Don decides to retire, because I just have so many great IU memories that all surrounded the voice of Don Fisher.
Chris, it's undoubtedly the tapestry of our.
To all of you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, Chris, very much. It's undoubtedly the tapestry of. Undoubtedly, the soundtrack of being from Indiana is Don Fisher's voice. I mean, it's just the way it is. By the way, speaking of that. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to. My understanding is Don, Indiana game tonight, taking on Michigan, and Don Fisher is on his way back from the game but has a flight delay. So we'll see whether or not he's doing the game tonight. I would assume John Herrick would be doing it if Fish is not. I don't know if I'm privy to give that out, but I just did. But, Chris, I appreciate the call. The only thing that now that I do games for regularly or sporting events regularly would be the Indy 500. And I have called like winning passes for the race, and I will simply say I can't speak for Don, but for me personally, I don't remember calls that I make, and if people reference it, I'm like, I don't remember that's how I said it, and if I hear it, I hate my voice so much that it's hard to hear. But it is very flattering, albeit surreal, to think that people may listen to that years later if they're watching a video or something about the 500. Jim joins us. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jake. As per usual, great show.
I would like to think we should pause and remember all those IU fans who attended games for years, bought season tickets, and are no longer with us. And I think there's an awful lot of happy people looking down and smiling today.
Is there anybody, Jim, that comes to mind for you when you think of that?
Oh, you led right into it. Yes, two of them. My father, Herschel Disney, and Dr. Robert Kirtley.
Okay, give me those names again.
Herschel, Hursel, Disney, Disney. My father, who was a member of the Hoosier 100 Club, and I used to laugh and say, "Dad, you know that's my inheritance you're donating." and longtime season ticket holder for both basketball and football, and Dr. Robert Kirtley, a family physician who was a ardent IU football fan.
Here's the thing, Jim, along with that list that you just mentioned, okay? Bob Jenkins, who we talked about, radio voices, that did the Indy 500 for years, of course, was the chief announcer and did television as well. And every year at the end of the year during the racing season, Bob would say, "Jake, I just want to know how IU's football team's going to be." He loved IU football. David Benner, the late David Benner. Some of the other names that were brought up today from callers: Bob Johnson, Terry Hutchins, which is a great call, born in California but understood the passion of Indiana football when he began covering the program. Earl Metzger, Ed Terrell, some of the names I wrote down here, and I hope I'm pronouncing them correctly. Tim Bragg, Terry Cole, Hank Pogue, Ralph Rice Sr., Jane Zabrendon. I hope I'm pronouncing these correctly. But for those that called in, and I appreciate it, those are among the names that we discussed and what it means. You don't have to be a diehard football fan. You don't have to be like my buddy Brian that said it so perfectly on television. It's surreal, and then he paused and said, "But it's real." And it is. You don't have to be somebody that was there for every game of the Doldrums to understand the beauty of it. And there's a beauty of it. Everything from the character with which they did it, which is probably by no surprise. But it represented everything that we are as a people in Indiana. We just have to work a little harder, and we want people to know that we're proud of who we are and where we're from. And that's what made it special. That's absolutely what made it special. I'll read a few texts, read a few tweets, and we may do a crossover next. Hey there, Jake Query for Franciscan Health. You know, you hear us each and every Friday do our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. Last night was good for the heart, was it not? Probably not good for the heart for a while there because your heart rate might have been up a little bit, but you might have been thinking to yourself, you know what? I really need to make sure that my cardiovascular health is where it needs to be. And the number one heart program in Indiana for cardiology and health grades and number one in Indiana for interventional coronary care and major cardiac surgery by CareChex is Franciscan Health. And right now they offer, as always, the affordable heart scan for just $49. Non-invasive, easy to do, and you are able to self-refer, pay out of pocket, and you get a free heart health risk assessment included in every single screening. You can't afford to not get the scan. It is simple, it is fast, and it can be life-saving. Just get an idea of your calcium buildup within your heart and where things may stand. Schedule your $49 heart scan from Franciscan Health at franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles. That's franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles, or call 833-238-0688.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Indiana Hoosiers, the national champions. You know, there's a lot about it that you wonder where you go from here. And I don't think Indiana's going away. I mean, it would be foolish to think that. I do think that we could now see kind of this mini dynasty, if you will. And by that, I don't mean Indiana mini dynasty. I mean, I think you're going to have turn of rotation of teams. Indiana for a couple of years. You know, Texas Tech is loading up in the portal because they've got all kinds of money. And I think you're going to have kind of this cycle, if you will, of money coming through from different programs. One team's going to load all in one year. Then the next year, another team's going to load all in. And you're going to get, you know, Indiana right now is cleaning up in the portal, and then other teams will do so, and you'll kind of have a rotation. But as long as Curt Cignetti is in Bloomington, and I don't see any reason at this point why he wouldn't, because, yes, there were people like he could leave for Alabama, he could leave for whatever, and what did he say? We're building a superpower here. And it's here. They're not building it, it's built. This wasn't out of nowhere. I mean, I saw people saying, like, comparing it to other things, and I'm thinking, no. This started last year, and I think that Indiana might have kind of learned a little bit their lesson from last year in terms of the way that they played against Notre Dame. They were a little conservative. And for the most part, last night, you think about it, they were not conservative on that. It was a 4th and 5. They go for it and they score, and for all intent and purposes, that was game over. But I'll be honest with you, and I know Miami had a shot back, I did not think that Miami was going to go down and score. I've watched plenty of football games where I'm like, this team's going to go down and score. I did not think that about Miami. I truly felt Indiana was going to keep them out of the end zone because that's what they've done all year. And Indiana has won games by forcing teams to make a mistake when they most need the team to make a mistake. And it was perfectly symbolic that that's how they won yesterday. Greg Rakestraw is in for JMV. My understanding is JMV circling somewhere over Cincinnati. And again, Don Fisher apparently also delayed on his way back from Miami. But the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com. The website, 317-353-2141 is the telephone number. And Rake, I know I saw you earlier this morning. You're probably still in the same disbelief as I, correct?
Correct. The line I keep coming back to is the line from the movie Hoosiers, and Norman Dale asked about going to the state finals. And he goes, it's kind of like me and you going to the moon.
Yep.
It was never something I thought about with IU football. The goal was always, hey, maybe you might luck into a Rose Bowl again at some point in time. And national championship was never a thought, never a goal. Yet here we are, 25 months after Curt Cignetti walked into Assembly Hall and said, Purdue sucks, but so does Ohio State and Michigan. And 25 months later, Indiana University owns a national championship in football.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It's insane.
And I think that, he knew when he said that he had to – he walked in and looked around and basically said, somebody's got to redo the wallpapering in this place.
Right.
And – I think, he had mentioned, did Curt Cignetti, that at one point he gambled on himself when he left a high-paying job at Alabama to go become a head coach at a lesser spot.
Mm-hmm.
He took a gamble on himself. He gambled on himself again when he made that statement because he put the heat on himself. But he had to let Indiana fans know, if I don't believe, then no one's going to believe.
There's different markers you can use to talk about this wild turnaround and one of the greatest turnaround stories in the history of North American sports. I could even shrink that field even more. Big Ten Media Days are in July, right? July of 2024, Indiana was picked to finish 17th.
That's right.
In the Big Ten.
That's right.
And they're national champs 18 months later.
Yeah, it's crazy. Rake will carry you home. He will be taking over here in just a couple of minutes, and we will be back with you at noon tomorrow. As always, I thank you for listening to Query and Company, and I will set the professionalism aside. Hoosiers! We'll talk to you at noon tomorrow.